Welcome to the Bourbon Van. I'm Phil.
I'm Julie.
And this is a special edition, kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Our first real van trip of the year, and we have a couple of purposes here. Number one is, you might already know that our cat Norman, we had to say goodbye to him a couple of weeks ago, and so we haven't been doing any videos, haven't felt really up to sitting around being silly in front of a camera, so we hit the road instead. And we're finding ourselves here in Nevada right now.
Not bad.
Not too shabby, because point two, we had to pick a bottle up for somebody.
Sure did. Stephen, your smoke wagon finally gonna make it to you.
That's right. Our Advent Tournament winner has been waiting ever so patiently because Smoke Wagon never came back to Oregon, so we couldn't pick it up, and you can't have it shipped there. So
I know, Oregon. What are you doing?
Stephen will be in touch, and we will get that thing dropped off to you very soon. Hand delivered. How's that for personal service?
I like it. We're heading your way. And while we're at it, we picked up this little beauty for us too.
Why not? And beyond that, we actually got a couple other great bottles, things that are totally not available by us in Oregon. We're going to show you those right now.
Do you think we'd come all this way without an uncut, unfiltered? It's not a smoke wagon sweep, but we do have 30 bottles currently in our possession.
Yeah, you go to Nevada, you bring back Smoke Wagon, and that's just what happened here. This is batch number 133, because we know some of you are very curious about that. Pretty sure the one that we have at home is 73 or 74 or something like that. So
they're doing some business.
They've been cranking this stuff out since the last time we got our hands on it. Stoked to get our hands on this bottle, and now it's time to talk about the next couple bottles, which are decidedly not Smoke Wagon.
Not. On our last road trip, we stumbled upon Still Austin the Musician, and we couldn't pass up a cask strength buy.
Yeah, cask strength Texas whiskey. This is our second bottle ever of Texas whiskey. Only our first cask strength bottle of Texas whiskey.
Right.
Pretty stoked to try this one. Again, only 2 years aged. It keeps blowing our minds how it can be so youthful and so tasty, and can't wait to see what that's got in store for us.
We came for one bottle and we left with 5. Last but not least, Ironroot Harbinger.
Fun to say.
Fun to say.
Great looking bottle, might I add. Another Texas whiskey, another high proof Texas whiskey. Again, super stoked to find this one. We couldn't even find this in Texas when we were looking, so we get recommended this one all the time. It's been on our list forever. Can't wait to dig into this one. And for those of you wondering, that's the last whiskey you guys picked up at Total Wine? You're in Nevada and you didn't even pick up any Frey Ranch? Stay tuned later on in this video. Good morning. While Julie is working, I have a little bit of time this morning, so I'm going for a run here on the lakefront in Silver Springs, Nevada. And it's a bit of an anniversary for me. This is my 9-year run-iversary. So I started running after the Boston Marathon bombing in 2013. Seeing all those people who worked so hard to have it end that way, something triggered in me, started me on a path, and I've been running ever since. Went from never running to, in my mid-30s, becoming an ultra-marathoner. So I'm out here thinking about those people, what they had to go through, and it's always a bit of a bittersweet thing for me, because it's been such a great thing for my life to take up this running, but at the same time, the inspiration that made me get out here in the first place was such a horrible thing. But it takes you to places like this, which are so perfectly solitary and beautiful and wonderful, and I can't be more grateful for having picked this up and for where it's taken me. So I'm going to run back to the van now and get cleaned up so that we can head over to Frey Ranch Distillery. You know I can't wait to get over there.
My name is Colby Frey. I call myself a whiskey farmer. Ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to be a farmer. And so my family's actually been farming in Nevada since 1854. Nevada didn't even become a state until 1864, 10 years later, and so we've been continually farming in Nevada since 10 years before Nevada was even considered a state. And really the importance of that is we know how to grow the grains in our specific climate and our soil with our irrigation techniques. You know, anywhere you go in the world, agriculture is completely different. And so by having that 170 years of knowledge that's been passed on from generation to generation, we can grow better grains. And with anything, with better inputs, you end up with better outputs. And so by growing our own grains, we can grow really high quality and have better inputs. And we feel like that really shows in the final product in our whiskeys. Right on. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Rolling?
Yeah.
Rolling.
All right. So we're going to try our standard bourbon right now. It's our 90 proof, 4 grains. It's got wheat, rye, barley, and corn. So it's aged at an average of 5 years. 100% of the ingredients in this were grown right here on the farm, the wheat, rye, barley, and corn.
You could almost taste the farminess to it, like
Yeah.
there was like an earthy quality to this.
Yeah. Our whole goal in creating the distillery was to showcase the crops, which are the grains that we grow here on the farm, and so that's what we really like to really think about that when we're drinking it.
Yeah.
We distilled all 4 grains on their own, so wheat, rye, barley, and corn, and tasted them by themselves, which is crazy because when you drink this, I can really tell what each one is contributing flavor-wise. What I really like is the finish, you know? Makes you want to come back and have some more. Now, what's cool about this is, and it's kind of ironic, is I'd get more rye spice in our bourbon than the rye, which is really kind of like, I can't really explain why, but I really like it. We call it a sippin' rye. This one got a lot of awards, double gold at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. It got top 10 in the Whiskey Advocate Fall Buying Guide. So this is 100 proof, bottled and bond, and like I said, it's 100% rye. To get 100% rye, it's a huge pain. Like, it's not easy. There's these polymers that are in rye that are almost like make it really slimy. The problem with that is the bubbles, the CO2 that's created during fermentation can't come to the top of the tank and dissipate. So it becomes entrapped in this rye slime, and it just like expands, and it's crazy. So it's a winter cereal rye, which all rye is a cereal rye, and most rye, I mean, I think there's spring rye, but most rye is winter rye too. But all grains that are in whiskey are all called cereal grains. But we just called it cereal rye because we wanted to distinguish that from, like, there's perennial ryegrass, and then there's cereal rye. And so cereal rye is like what we use to make whiskeys. But I get like bazooka bubble gum almost, and like you think about that when you taste it, and I think you'll see. This one is something you have probably not had because this is a distillery only release. This is 100% wheat. So we just tasted 100% rye. This is 100% wheat. Very limited quantities. We actually had also, which already sold out, is 100% oat. But we, like I said, we distilled all the grains by themselves, so you can taste what the actual grain contributes flavor-wise. So oats are really interesting. It tastes like an oatmeal cookie.
Wow.
Is that different? That's
really so different.
Isn't that crazy? Like how smooth that is. Like it's 100 proof, bottled and bond. This one's 6.5, aged 6.5 years. We make 80% bourbon, 15% rye, and then 5% of this other fun stuff. Yeah. And what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to release we really only released our bourbon in December of 2019. And 6 months later, we released our rye. And we didn't want to release our single grain series first and be known as like some single grain type distillery, you know what I mean? We wanted to really get established with our bourbon and then our rye, and then once we kind of felt like we were, you know, a little bit established with those, then we kind of started releasing our fun stuff. So that's why it took 6.5 years to first release the other ones, and a year and a half later we got to let some of that go. One of the things with oat is that like in a normal batch of bourbon we get about 10.5 to 11 barrels per batch. With oat we get 2. And oats are 60% hulls. Hulls is like the protective like sheath or coating around the, you know, it's almost like a shell type, you know, as a hull. And so it's 60% hulls, which don't offer any distillation value. And then to begin with, we're converting starch to sugar in the distillery. There's not a lot of starch in the actual 40% that is oats also. So we just don't yield a lot. So we decided to put it all in small bottles. That way we could sell more bottles. And we put a bottle limit on at the distillery. That way more people could get it. And it's just more fun that way.
Definitely.
I think we ended up with 900 bottles of oat and only a couple thousand bottles of wheat. Yeah. So, and those are half bottles. So
we'll have lots more from Colby Frey in a future episode profiling Frey Ranch Distillery. But for this weekend, all we had time to do was find a great campsite, record a 5-Sip Friday, and enjoy a gorgeous morning in the mountains before heading home.